I'm a little rusty on it.
I'll hum it for you.
we go. How is everyone doing? It's Monday. It's Monday. It's rainy again today. All right, let's do the intro really quickly. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you might be watching this. My name is Josh, and welcome to my channel. On here, we talk news, we talk politics, we talk current events. Yeah, it's another day. It is, what's today? 15th. Oh my God, we're almost done with May. It's May 15th, 2023. Yeah. So, Title 42 expired over the weekend. So I don't have like the deepest knowledge on Title 42. Like I have a like vague understanding of it. But yeah, I figure we'll just kind of hang out and kind of go over a little bit of the history, read some articles about it, and look at some videos. I think we're just gonna kind of have a pretty chill afternoon stream today. But before we do that, uh you all know the drill. We need to go over the United States' kill streak as of yesterday. So let me pull this up. There we go. According to the Gun Violence Archive, for the date of May 14th, 2023, there were a total of 31 deaths and 110 injuries in the United States due to gun violence and or just general gun usage, essentially. This is not organized by state, it's not organized by region, it's not organized by homicide, suicide, none of that. These are just raw numbers to show us our cost every single day for our relationship to guns and the rather I think loose restrictions that we have on them. This is the cost that we had yesterday. 31 deaths, 110 injuries. This will always continue until, and will kind of always be, I think, stark numbers. But these are kind of the decisions that we make in terms of our gun policy. I want to take a look really quickly at a story coming out of Texas. Let's see, when did this? Yep, a story coming out of Texas. We're going to watch this mainly to kind of, I think, what's the word I'm looking for? To kind of not personalize this. What's the word I'm looking for? To characterize kind of the numbers that I just read off. So let's take a look at a person who is going to be included in the numbers probably tomorrow if they weren't included in the numbers that we just read. So
Saturday afternoon,
she was really outgoing. she loved to party.
39-year-old Ana Moreno was a wife, sister, and mother to 3 kids.
Like anything you would want in a mom, it was her.
Michelle Rodriguez is Anna's youngest daughter. She says on Saturday afternoon, her mom took her older sister Amy to get her hair done and pick up her dress for prom, which was that night.
She was like, oh, like we finally get to see her get ready. And she didn't even get to see it happen.
Dallas police say on Saturday, just after 4 p.m., officers arrived for a shooting. 2 cars headed eastbound were shooting at each other, and neighbor surveillance video captured the cars as they passed by. One of the bullets entered Michelle's mother's car. Her sister was in the passenger seat.
And all she heard was gunshots. And she just said that my mom just like made like a signal that she couldn't breathe. And then she just leaned on Amy's shoulder, and then that's when they crashed. And then that's when that's when Amy was saying that she called the ambulance.
I put the shirt on the wound and I lifted her up, tried to see if I could get a response out of her, and I couldn't.
Jacob Foz was driving home with his wife and stopped to help, but there was nothing much he could do. Ana Moreno was taken to the hospital, but she died hours before Mother's Day.
But it hurts. It really does hurt because we all had such a great bond with my mom. And it hurts that we lost her so early.
On Sunday afternoon, loved ones, including Amy, the daughter who witnessed her mother's final moments, and Jacob,
They asked us if we could be here today. They've been very grateful with us that we stopped to render aid.
all showed up to the crash site to honor a mother
Anywhere you would see her, she would have her bright red
Jesus.
lipstick and her gold jewelry. She loved those colors.
whose life was senselessly taken.
She was the best person you could ever be. She didn't deserve anything that happened to her.
In East Dallas, Sophia Beausoleil, NBC5.
And this is the thing, and this is why this kind of just popped up, as I was looking for stuff as a general, just a general story. But just keep in mind, every single day we make decisions on how we're going to organize our society. And there will be people who will say, "Oh, what gun control law would have stopped this? What what gun measure would have prevented this? What was this person doing? Why were there people shooting into cars? Is this like gang? Whatever." And while those things are relevant to the case, it's not why I honed in on this. And it's simply because we as citizens go around, our every single day places. We go to grocery stores, we go to malls, we go to movie theaters, we go to all these places with an expectation that we are able to safely attend these public places and live kind of normal lives. And unfortunately, due to the relationship that we have in this country, a unique relationship that we have in this country to firearms, many times normal average citizens are cut down due to the prevalence of firearms in our society. This is a choice that we've made over the last handful of years. And it's why I support a lot of, I think, really common sense gun regulations and gun restrictions. There will be people who will say, banning this or that gun won't, affect anything, won't improve anything. And they're just lying. They know that they're lying. Any kind of ban on this or that weapon and kind of weapon is naturally going to see a reduction in the use of that weapon and in the accidental use of that weapon. But it's just what it comes down to is what we as a society are, I think, able to stomach and what we are able to pretty much accommodate in terms of gun restrictions, what we're okay with, I think. What anything else? Anyway. But either way, let's not, we don't need to stay too heavily on that specific topic too much. But anyway, so with that out of the way, Title 42. So I have a very vague understanding of Title 42. And I'm sure there are people who hear about it, have some kind of also vague idea of Title 42, but maybe aren't like super versed on the deep specifics. So I think it would be helpful to kind of just go over, read some articles, and just kind of learn a little bit together. So we're going to start with a general overview from the Anti-Defamation League. All right, what is Title 42 and what does it have to do with asylum? Oh, that scrolled really quickly. Title 42 has been in the news a lot these days. Images of migrants and those seeking asylum at the U.S. border, often families with young children, populate our TV screens and social media feeds. What is Title 42 and what does it have to do with people seeking asylum? Title 42 is part of the Public Health Service Act of 1944. Its purpose is to help prevent the spread of communicable diseases in the U.S. Responding to a cholera epidemic, Congress passed a law in 1893 that later became Title 42. That law gave the president authority to exclude people from certain countries during public health emergencies. According to Title 42, whenever the U.S. director of the CDC determines there is a communicable disease in another country, health officials have the authority, with the approval of the president to prohibit, quote, the introduction of persons and property from such countries or places for as long as health officials determine is necessary. That authority was held by the U.S. Surgeon General until it was transferred to the CDC director in 1966. Okay, so that makes sense. Around the world, there are tons of diseases that spread. We do not want them here. I think it's reasonable to say, hey, we're not taking immigration from this country while there is the threat to public health safety. That makes sense. Prior to 2020, Title 42 had never been used, and the law that became Title 42 had only been used once in 1929 to keep ships from China and the Philippines from entering U.S. ports during a meningitis outbreak. Makes sense? Not to say, let me just say this also, not to say it hasn't been abused before, and it certainly hasn't been abused in the recent history, but like conceptually, it makes sense to restrict, to put those restrictions on immigration from countries where there is a current, a health scare. How is Title 42 being used today? When people discuss Title 42 today, they're usually talking about how the law has been used since the COVID-19 pandemic emerged. In March 2020, the Trump administration activated Title 42. Title 42 gives the U.S. Border Patrol the power to turn away people who are seeking asylum. See below to learn more about asylum. The Trump administration said they were using Title 42 to help stop the spread of COVID-19 in immigrant detention centers, where many migrants and asylum seekers are placed when they arrive at the U.S.-Mexico border. However, many believe that Title 42 was used to keep asylum seekers out of the country to end asylum and was part of the Trump administration's overall anti-immigrant agenda and policies. It was reported by the New York Times that Stephen Miller, a senior advisor to former President Donald Trump, who was instrumental in many of these anti-immigrant policies, pushed the idea of using Title 42 at the U.S.-Mexico border as early as 2018, 2 years before COVID-19 emerged as a communicable disease. Makes sense. Title 42 being used in this way has been criticized by many civil and human rights organizations. They say that the policy uses public health as a pretext or excuse to stop migrants from seeking protection and safety in the U.S. in violation of U.S. and international immigration law. Excuse me. What is asylum and why do people seek asylum? Who are the people seeking asylum at the border now? Asylum is a protection given by the country to someone who has left another country because of a, quote, well-founded fear of persecution. Persecution means that a person is continually treated in a cruel or harsh way because of their race, religion, political ideas, or some other aspect of identity. Asylum allows that person to stay in the new country legally. To explain it in more simple terms, there are people all over the world who have to leave their country because it is unsafe or dangerous because of war, violence, being mistreated, natural disasters, etc. They are called refugees. Asylum is a kind of protection that lets someone stay in the country instead of being deported to a country where they are afraid for their safety. Asylum in the U.S. has historically been granted to people from other countries already in the U.S. or at the border who meet the international law definition of a refugee. The United Nations 1951 Convention and 1967 Protocol define a refugee as a person who is unable or unwilling to return to their home country and cannot obtain protection in that country due to past persecution or legitimate fear of being persecuted in the future on account of, quote, on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Congress incorporated this definition in the U.S. immigration law. Law and Refugee Act of 1980. In terms of public opinion about those seeking asylum, in a December 2022 poll, a majority of Americans said that the U.S. should continue to offer asylum to people who arrive at the border if they are found to be fleeing persecution. 55% said the U.S. should continue to offer asylum to them, and 23% said the U.S. should not. Makes sense. Over the past several years, those seeking asylum at the U.S. border include families who have been fleeing violence, threats, and persecution in Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Haiti, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, and other countries in crisis. They are in urgent need of safety, assistance, and protection, according to the International Rescue Committee. Gang violence is rampant in the region, Central America. Women and girls are specific targets with violence leveraged as a method to control families with threats, punishments, and extortion. It is considered one of the most dangerous regions in the world for women and members of the LGBTQI plus community. U.S. laws clearly grant asylum seekers the right to apply for asylum. However, since Title 42 was invoked in March of 2020, U.S. border agents have turned away those seeking asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border more than 2 million times, including families with young children. The situation has forced people to go back to dangerous conditions in Mexico or return them to the countries they fled, putting their lives at risk. The policy has caused disproportionate harm to Black, Indigenous, and LGBTQ plus asylum seekers. Okay, so not to get on to commentary too quickly, but let's keep in mind two aspects to this. The Trump administration and Republicans writ large are rather interested in preserving Title 42 and having a excuse, having a reason to essentially not let immigrants into the country. This is also, keep in mind, the same party who claims to be pro-life, concerned about the safety of women, and yet we see this very blasé, very disinterested attitude from this same group in terms of immigrants who also fit those bills and who also are facing quite a lot of danger. This is kind of, I think, this is where you can see pretty much the rubber hit the road, in my opinion, where we have these migrant communities, we have these migrant populations that are facing danger, that are oftentimes, made up of many women and many children, facing danger, facing threats from cartels, from gangs. This is not something that Americans are unfamiliar with constantly. The same group of people, Republicans specifically, are always talking about how dangerous cartels are, how dangerous South America is, and everything else. But suddenly, when women and children, the two groups that they consistently say they are interested in defending, come to this country seeking safety, they don't have an interest and they don't really seem to be very motivated to find safety for those women and children. And the only reason I can think of is they're not that interested in these people's struggles, and they're not that interested in these specific, people's danger to their children or to their lives. And that begs the question always. If you're so pro-life, if you're so interested in the preservation of children's lives, and if you're so interested in the safety and the preservation of women's lives, and we see this often in the trans women debate, then why is it that migrant women and children aren't of interest to you? Why is it this specific group seems to not trip your senses for concern over those groups? What is different about these migrant groups of women and children that Republicans seem to not be as interested in? Always keep that in mind. Okay, what has happened to Title 42 in the courts? The Biden administration has condemned Title 42 and said that it plans to stop using it. However, while various courts have been deciding whether to allow the use of Title 42 to end, the administration has continued to rely on and even expand it. When President Biden first took office in January 2021, his administration left Title 42 in place and even defended it in court. Eventually, in April of 2022, the Biden administration announced that it would suspend the order, but a federal judge in Louisiana stopped that from happening. The administration said that it would appeal the judge's orders, ask a higher court. In the meantime, though, the administration actually expanded the use of Title 42, pairing it with narrow paths to legal entry for only a small group of people who were seeking safety. In a separate case called Arizona v. Mayorkas, 6 families challenged Title 42 in federal court in Washington, D.C. These families crossed the U.S.-Mexico border without permission and then asked for asylum, both for themselves but also as a class action. asking for other families who are in the same situation. In November 2022, a federal judge in D.C. ordered the end of Title 42. 19 Republican-led states asked the Supreme Court for permission to weigh in on the case, arguing that the Biden administration would not defend Title 42 strongly enough. The Supreme Court kept Title 42 in place until it could decide whether the states are allowed to weigh in. After the court said that the Biden administration expanded the use of Title 42 again, pairing it with narrow ways of legal entry for only a small group of people seeking safety. Let's see. Okay. Interesting. A bit of background. Let's watch a video now, shall we? Oh yeah, that's right. I muted this. Unmute.
Many of the migrants stuck in Mexico were trying to get into the U.S. with the assumption they would be let in after the asylum rule changed. Well, as you can imagine, that misinformation caused confusion. CBS's Nicole Skenga is in the border community of Brownsville, Texas. Nicole, what more are you learning about the number of migrants crossing right now?
Good evening, Derica. Over the past 2 days, U.S. Border Patrol says there's been roughly a 50% drop in migrants arriving at the southern border compared to earlier this week.
A waiting game, now a humanitarian crisis. Tiny faces peer through a San Diego border wall, hands outstretched for...
Look, what are we doing? Like, honest to God, I really have to ask, do we not have the resources in this country? We are the richest nation in the world right now. Are we incapable of solving this problem? Is this something that we should be continuing this relationship to migrant refugees? Like, God.
For anything to eat.
Hambre también, tenemos mucha hambre.
You're hungry.
Hungry, yes.
Migrants also clutch their phones for a ticket out. 40-year-old Manuel Sanchez says he's been trying and failing to secure an immigration appointment on the U.S. government's online portal.
Yo particularmente no sé mucho, muchas personas le he preguntado a más de 60 venezolanos y nos vamos a regresar en septiembre.
Stuck in purgatory, the Venezuelan migrant adds he may turn back. For those who made it to America, some are exhausted and penniless, like 32-year-old Venezuelan Victor Blanco, who lost nearly everything while swimming across a river in Colombia.
Uno pasa por muchas cosas. Uno viene luchando por allá, poco a poco caminando, agarrando bus por la selva.
He says he's been through a lot and now waits, among many others, at a Brownsville, Texas bus station to start his new life in the U.S. Others remain at overcrowded migrant processing centers.
We are holding about 5,000 people. My capacity is about 4,600.
Border communities stuck between competing asylum policies and squarely in the middle of immigration politics.
This is not a Democratic or Republican problem. It's an American problem.
And just across the Rio Grande River behind me, beyond this border wall, migrant tents lining this crossing, Mexico has announced it won't admit more than 1,000 migrants a day from those expelled by the U.S. Derica?
Causing, I'm sure, even more confusion. Nicole Skenga, who's been...
Yeah, and let's keep in mind here, these people are just trying to find somewhere to kind of like settle in at some point. Good God. Trial workloads. Okay, yeah, this is what I wanted. This is like a bit out of order, my tabs, but okay. Immigration judge says trial workloads and resource constraints are, quote, a problem. Hit me with it. In the days before last week's end of the pandemic era policy known as Title 42, around 10,000 people were crossing the southern border into the U.S. per day. That number had dropped nearly 50% by the weekend, but millions of cases involving asylum seekers are pending. Mimi Sankov? Sure. Sankov, president of the National Association of Immigration Judges, tells Morning Edition that although the Biden administration pledges to hire more judges, it will always be a problem trying to meet 2.1 million cases. If you do the math on that, even with the, I think, 700 judges that we have now or so, that's 3,500 cases per judge. That's assuming we didn't even get any new cases coming through the door, which, as we know, will not be the case. So it's a problem. with the U.S. reverting back to rules including expediting removals and a new mandate that migrants must seek asylum in a nation they pass through before applying to enter the U.S., Sankoff tells NPR's Martinez that immigration courts are still lacking the resources required to manage the current caseload. Jesus. Okay, so this is also the thing, right? So the problem, like the real main problem here. Ooh, can we actually listen to this?
Border crossings are down since the expiration of the pandemic-era border restriction known as Title 42. Here's Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on CNN yesterday.
Over the past 2 days, the United States Border Patrol has experienced a 50% drop in the number of encounters versus what we were experiencing earlier in the week before Title 42 ended.
U.S. officials have now reverted back to processing all migrants under Title 8. The law carries penalties and expedited removals for those crossing the border unlawfully. The Biden administration is also requiring migrants to seek asylum in a nation they've crossed through first before they can ask for it in the U.S. So how will the changes affect America's immigration courts? To answer that,
I also don't really see how that's that relevant. Like, honest to God, I don't really see how that's or not relevant. I don't see how that's really going to be much of a stopgap, but
joined by Mimi Zankoff, who is the president of the National Association of Immigration Judges. Good morning. Now, despite the drop in crossings, thousands are still waiting near the border, and there are already 2 million pending immigration cases. Do you expect that backlog to get worse?
Well, we can certainly predict that with any surge at the border, caseloads are definitely going to increase. And as you just mentioned, with those backlogs at an all-time high of over 2.1 million cases currently pending, it's only going to get worse. Right now, the judges have about 3,500 cases that they have on their individual dockets at the 69 courts around the country. And we're really concerned whether we're going to be able to meet the expectations of the administration in resolving these cases expeditiously.
When it comes to granting asylum, what are some of the factors that you consider when deciding that?
Well, we look at whether the respondent who's appearing before us can present documents that establish that they would be persecuted in their home country if they were ordered removed. So in order to judge the extent to which they can meet their burden, we look at the types of documents that they submit, how they present testimony before the court, and the type of experts that they present to establish that it's objectively reasonable that they would be persecuted if they were returned.
In those documents, I'm fascinated by this. What do they typically show if they prove that there is a state?
So keep in mind, like, I guess the issue that we're running up against, or the political debate that we're going to be probably engaged in for a while here, is the question of whether we should even, be having an asylum system. Because what we hear a lot of times, come here, cat, you need to stop. What we hear a lot of times is from people, complaining about the border crossings, complaining about the migrant load and all the rest of the stuff. But we still have yet to see Congress or, anybody really get around to, cat, get off me, get around to like passing some immigration reform. So, and I feel like I've been hearing about immigration reform for what, more than 10 fucking years. And we're still talking about this. How's it going, Jonas? But yeah, it's just like we need to have an actual solution. And from what I remember, we've just never been able to pass any kind of real immigration reform. But we'll get into the politics later. We'll as we continue on the
discrimination.
If they are trying to establish that they would suffer political persecution, they might present a card that shows that they've been a member of a political party. They might show documents to establish, maybe in the newspaper, that they attended a rally and that there was some sort of government persecution of their activities in that rally. If it's a religious-based persecution, they might show us a baptismal certificate or some sort of religious certificate of some type, or their attendance at religious ceremonies.
And how long does that typically take to go over all the evidence? I'm trying to figure out exactly, case by case, how long each of those cases may last, typically.
Some of them can be quite straightforward. The trial itself, it might take a couple of hours to complete the cases. You may already know this, but the immigration judges are hearing cases day in and day out, usually 3 to 4 trials a day. So with 3,500 cases.
And this is, okay, so this is my thing also. Why the fuck was Biden not fucking hiring a bunch of more judges as it was? Like, if you knew you were going to be ending Title 42, then fucking you should have been hiring judges like a year ago to get them ready for this.
With 3,500 cases pending, we just don't get as much time as we'd like to be able to devote to each and every one of the cases.
Do things move quicker when someone has a lawyer with them?
Unfortunately,
absolutely.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
as immigration judges, we always encourage the respondents to
mainly
seek representation because, as you know,
it mainly comes out of the consequences of, I think, campaign finance laws, or I guess the corruption of both of our parties in this country, because both parties are pretty much bought and paid by the same groups. The only real way for them to distinguish themselves is to focus on a lot of surface level and a lot of culture war topics, whereas you don't really see, especially in the US, a lot of economic politics being debated, mainly because both parties are capitalist parties. Both parties are not interested in changing the system, not interested in really reimagining the United States's economic situation for workers. They're both pretty interested in keeping things exactly how they are. It's just, so once those two things are, you can't build coalitions around economics. You tend to build coalitions around differences in culture, and that's why we're very polarized. It's the only thing Americans all agree on is how corrupt our government is. But unfortunately, because we have a two-party system and no real way to kind of break free of that in a meaningful fashion, there's it's hard to coalition build across both parties, because one party will, all they have to say is, well, they're in favor of killing babies, and you've lost one half of your coalition already. So but yeah, US politics is quite a pain in the ass.
Because, as you know, they don't have the right to free representation in immigration court. Fortunately, there are a lot of non-governmental organizations that are providing some assistance to them. And one of the most recent initiatives that the administration just came out with was something called the Council for Children Initiative, that in 8 courts around the country, they're going to try to help children seek counsel.
How often do you see attorneys with people?
For the vast majority of the cases that I preside over in New York City, really pretty much almost everyone is represented. And if they don't have counsel on the day of their first or second hearing, if they can explain that they've been really trying to seek representation, if I have sufficient basis within which to grant a brief continuance, I will do so. But there is a limitation in the law as to how long we can continue to push a case, over to a new hearing while they're waiting to seek representation.
And I know the administration has moved to add more immigration judges. Is that going to be enough, or as you said, is this going to be one of those things where it's just too much to think that it's going to be expedited that quickly?
Just a bit.
It will always be a problem trying to meet 2.1 million cases, because if you do the math on that, that's 3,500 cases. That's per judge. That's assuming we didn't even get any new cases coming through the door, which, as we know, will not be the case. So we're very hopeful that the administration will be able to hire the judge teams that we need to help address the chronic staffing shortages.
The older cases, is it going to go chronological? Are they going to be handled first in front of the newer ones?
It'll depend on what the administration decides will be the priority, and
Also,
law enforcement priorities prevail.
Thank you. Mimi Zankoff is the president.
The wildest thing about everything you just said also is we let the guy who orchestrated and organized these people, at least on an ideological level, if not, like, obviously Trump did not directly organize the January 6th rioters, but like, we allowed the guy who pretty much ideologically led this movement to, he's just running for president again, and he's said that he's going to pardon like any number of those guys. So it's actually fucking insane that in the United States we do not have a system that says like, hey, did you try to overthrow a democratically elected president, and did you try to like mess with the democratic election process? Yeah, that's disqualifying for running for office again. But no, we're just gonna let him run again, and we're gonna have to run this entire thing all over again. It's just we're gonna look back on it and be like and wonder how the fuck we just let this happen. We just let we let January 6th happen, and we just let Trump run for president again. We just kind of brushed off a lot of what happened, and we'll just go right back to the same fucking hamster wheel again. Assuming he doesn't break the entire democracy, which I'll admit I'm still skeptical of, but I grow less skeptical the more we go on. 100% agree with that. Lincoln said, "We will never be beaten by a foreign country. The only thing that can kill us is..." Oh, absolutely. If I'm mine, and now that I think about it, both sides. To be fair, it kind of makes more sense on the right since they're more pro-gun. Yeah, and also keep in mind the thing about Antifa. Like, the thing about Antifa is there is not. People think that there is this strong coordination of Antifa members, and it's just there just isn't. There hasn't been. There is no organization that you show up to. Like, I'm part of like DSA, right? I'm part of the Democratic Socialists of America. We have like a Slack channel. We like are constantly communicating with each other and organizing, but that's not how Antifa works. Antifa as a unit is very decentralized and normally very what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to think of the word. I think it starts with a P, but I just can't remember the fucking word. Point is, everyone kind of comes together as individual like dissident people and dissident groups and come together under a opposition to fascism. But there is no fucking r/Antifa, or even like Antifa members of America, or any kind of group that you can join. It's a general mindset and people who have a general agreeance to a set of values, usually centered around anti-fascism. So and also Antifa aren't even that geared up. Have you seen your local Antifa member? They're pretty Black Bloc is like a hoodie and a mask and like a balaclava usually. There obviously are like, if we're talking tactical gear, you're probably thinking like John Brown Gun Club, which they are a official group. Let me see if I can find. Fucking damn it! That's not how you spell John Brown. Oh fuck. Gun Club. Sure. Let's see if I can find like a good picture of the group. Yeah, like John. Yeah, like let's see. Yeah. Let's see if oh my god, where? Yeah, like John Brown Gun Club. You're gonna get like people like this, like pretty. I mean, nice backpack and stuff, but nothing honestly super crazy. And I've seen some people at what's it called, at counter protests. Yeah, this is like, yeah, everyone's in like fucking jeans and it fucking like, what is this fucking gun? What fucking like goddamn bolt action shit, whereas you see the Boogaloo Boys are all fucking geared up with funny Hawaiian shirts or whatever. But either way, in the video in front of that drag dance club, a lot of people with AR-15 all black. Yeah. I believe those are actually I think I know exactly which one. Texas. Drag. Let me see. Let's see. I know exactly who you're talking. Yeah, these guys, right? Let me. Yeah, like these guys, right? Whew. I remember this guy in the fucking Texas. What jersey is this? Baseball, but Texas base. Is that an Astros? Yeah, that would have to be an Astros. Or no, is that Astros? Fuck, I don't know baseball enough. It might be the Astros. Yeah, these guys, yeah. That guy has fucking like science class goggles on. But yeah, usually a lot of these guys are usually part of a gun club of some kind, and also probably are also dedicated to anti-fascism. But again, they're not. This isn't. Again, to say that it's not a group is the main thing. The main difference between left-wing militias in the United States and right-wing militias. They're just very differently organized groups. But yeah, practicing communism is illegal where I live. Where is that? Out of curiosity? Or showing communist ideals? Poland. I can kind of imagine that. There's like quite a well, yeah, because don't you guys? I don't know very much about Polish politics, but from what I understand, or at least I would from my understanding of history, which isn't that great, I would assume that Poland has a pretty oppositional relationship to communist politics after the fall of the Soviet Union, since it's the same kind of way in the U.S. we have a very oppositional relationship to communism in the same way due to our relationship during the Cold War with the Soviet Union. Yeah, we pretty much fought our entire history for survival. Yeah, I can imagine. My girlfriend's half Polish, but I don't think she. I mean, she knows some stuff about Poland, but not deep knowledge. Anyway, let's see what video was I on? Oh, here it is. Ugh.
New government data gathered by CBS News shows that there's been a big drop in the number of migrants encountered by border officials since Title 42 expired last week. The Biden administration says its new rules are deterring asylum seekers from trying to enter the U.S. Nicole Skanga is joining me now from Brownsville, Texas, with more on what is going on there. So Brownsville has been kind of like the center of a lot of concern, but we have these new numbers now. What more are we learning about the numbers of migrants attempting to cross now?
Well, good morning, Anne-Marie. Exactly 1 week ago, we were seeing record-breaking numbers, upwards of 10,000 migrant arrivals a day across the southern border, and 2,200 right here in Brownsville. You can see we're standing in the Brownsville bus station, many still awaiting a bus to their final destinations here in the U.S. This spurred by, an uptick in Venezuelan asylum seekers. Thursday, when Title 42 was lifted at midnight, we were along the Rio Grande, along the razor wire with U.S. Border Patrol, and it was quiet. You mentioned some of those numbers. On Friday, we saw some 6,200 migrant arrivals across the southern border, the number dropping even further on Saturday to 4,200. But just to put it in context for our viewers, these are still historically high numbers. These are numbers we were seeing back in March of this year, and we have still seen a consistently high level of asylum seekers trying to come to the United States. Despite this, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, touting this perhaps as a success story, that there has been, in fact, a dip of roughly 50% in the number of migrant arrivals over the past couple of days.
I mean, shit.
I think it's good for you to put those numbers in perspective. So former South Carolina governor and 2024 presidential hopeful Nikki Haley was on Face the Nation on Sunday, and she talked a little bit about this issue. Let's play what she had to say.
This is a crisis created by Republicans and Democrats. This very much should have been dealt with a long time ago.
Why is she running for president? Lady, just throw in the towel.
It wasn't. What I would do is, first of all, do the mandatory E-Verify. I would defund sanctuary cities. I would go back to remain in Mexico because no one wants to remain in Mexico. I would
What? Okay. I don't get what the idea of like, oh, we don't want sanctuary cities. Like, aren't you all supposed to be small government states' rights folks?
Fire the 87,000.
If like a local community is okay with taking in migrants, I think that's perfectly fine.
IRS agents that are going after Middle America and put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground. And instead of catch and release, let's go to catch and deport.
All right, so she started that off by saying, listen, you know, both Democrats and Republicans are responsible for this. And she's right. It's been administration after administration, and there has not been a successful attempt to overhaul the immigration system here so that it works better.
And let's be honest here. The reason why that is because, well, you know, we'll get to whatever Democrats' stances are, which I'm not even really super aware of what even Biden wants to do with immigration. But we know what Republicans want to do. They just want to arm the border and make it so that nobody can come here. That, like, they do want to end immigration. Like, they want the immigration process to just completely stop. They have no interest in keeping any kind of immigration process open to people of, and I'll say this, non-European nations. Like, they just have no interest in it.
That being said, you know, you identified a bit of a dip in light of record numbers. Can the Biden administration take credit for the at least current dip that we're seeing? Or is there an expectation that, you know, there was such a ramp up before Title 42 expired that, maybe there's a dip, but things might just sort of continue to rev back up again?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, I think it's so important to point out there are no winners in a humanitarian crisis, and we have not seen major bipartisan legislation on immigration since the Reagan administration. Now, there has been a sweeping asylum restriction that's gone into effect that was put into place by the Biden administration once Title 42 lifted. That seems to have messaged well for the administration so far. Serious preparations also helped. You know, surging 1,400 DHS personnel to the border, 1,500.
Up of Germany and Russia at the same time during World War II, but the British and the French fucked us over and left us to die. We had the biggest resistance in German-controlled Europe, and then we had a giant uprising in the capital where the Soviets, instead of helping us, stopped their advance and let us die. In Yalta, Roosevelt sold us over to Stalin, and 50 years of Soviet occupation followed. Jesus Christ.
Active duty troops in addition to 2,500 National Guard and, of course, the Texas National Guard, along with local law enforcement here. On day one, the government looked prepared, not overrun. But there are still serious wrinkles in the Biden administration's plans. There are thousands that remain in limbo, sort of north of the border, but south of the border wall in Mexico. And their fates hang in the balance of an app. It's called the CBP One app that is highly flawed, that is, you know, only accessed by a phone. And so to now have this very narrow path of asylum that is only accessed for those most vulnerable who have access to technology is a real challenge, you know, for asylum in this country, on top of many legal challenges that this administration also now faces.
Sheesh. Well, yeah, I guess let's get into a bit of the politics, shall we? All right. Biden stuck with no-win political mess after ending Title 42. COVID-era policy has ended, but Biden's border policy woes have not. They've only begun. President Joe Biden is getting pummeled on immigration, from both sides of the political spectrum. Lawsuits rolled in late Thursday night from the left and the right, amid a torrent of criticism already pouring in over his lifting of the public health order known as Title 42. God, dude, like, from a political standpoint, also, it also doesn't do you a lot of favors when you're just, you're running for re-election and you've pissed off not just one side but both sides. That's always smart. That's always cool. You're gonna have tens of thousands of people pouring into our country. Donald Trump said at his CNN town hall this week, we don't want them being in our country. We don't want them being in our country. We have enough problems right now. Yeah. It's fairly obvious. Republicans, Donald Trump and the like, just don't want these people into their country. That makes sense because they see them as as bringing problems, as bringing crime, even though immigrants commit less crime than native citizens. And also, did that happen? It actually didn't. Trump's rebuke may have been predictable, but Biden is taking incoming. I'm assuming that's supposed to be shots from progressives too. They say the president's new rule, similar to a Trump-era policy referred to as the transit ban, is too harsh and will further limit access to the country's asylum system. Let's see. It's evident that there's been an unmistakable shift in the president's immigration policy. Chuy Garcia, Democrat from Illinois, pointing to Biden administration officials floating family detention, sending troops to the border, and making it harder for some migrants to apply for asylum. I know that the administration is in a tough spot, but it's beyond disappointing to see them trying to appease Republicans on immigration. Yeah, and this is I'm assuming they're referring to, requiring you to seek asylum in one more country before you do it here, which, again, it's all right, you want me to go through an asylum process for in a country I'm not trying to stay in to then do that process for here? Just unnecessary barriers. How Biden's administration handles the upheaval could determine whether immigration will be a typical second-tier campaign issue that fires up the MAGA base but moves few votes, or a topic that rattles voters across the political spectrum and casts doubt on Biden's competency, like the pullout from Afghanistan. Let's see. Let me read this. We only regained independence from Russia, Germany, and Russia after World War I, 1918. We were under occupation for the previous 123 years, and right after that, we fought a war with the Soviets, and then World War II happened, and Russia only withdrew in 93, leaving a lot of guns on the streets, causing a lot of gang violence. Lovely. Yeah. Jesus. If you think that at least the Poles and the Ukrainians are friends, nope, they basically did a massive ethnic cleansing during World War II, where, to avoid using bullets, they killed around 100,000 Poles by torture and melee tools. Quote, we do not have the numbers or power, so we must show no mercy in extreme. Jesus Christ. Jesus. I am sorry for all of that. I wish I had something more substantive to say. Jesus. That's fucking rough. To give you a little clue in, the only thing that we in the United States really learn about Poland is that it took longer for Poland to surrender during World War II than it did France. And that's really kind of the only thing Americans are taught as a way to kind of stick it to the French. And that's pretty much it. It's basically the only thing we learn about Poland in our high schools. And I went to a pretty decent, I attended a fairly good school district in the country too. So trust me, there are people who are in the South who have even less of awareness of any kind of Polish history or Polish politics or anything. So, but damn, that's a lot. Poles and Czechs, nope, they fucked us over and stole our land after World War II, which leaves these are rather okay neighbors. Yeah, that's a fact. And France was one of the biggest armies back then, and Poland fought both the full might of Germany and full might of USSR at the same time. Yeah. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Thursday called immigration a problem that has vexed this country for decades and blamed congressional gridlock for failing to update outdated immigration laws. He also denied the Biden administration's immigration policies mirrored those from the Trump era. I mean, if you're doing detention centers and everything else, doesn't sound like it's going to be that different. We stand markedly different than the prior administration. We do not resemble it at all. Thursday's briefing, citing the reunifications of migrant families that were separated at the border, the withdrawal of the so-called public charge rule, and other policies. After midnight on Friday, groups of migrants crossed the border, camping out in border towns and filling immigration processing centers. At some ports of entry, it was a quiet, orderly night, according to reports. But thousands more migrants are expected to make the trek this month. Historically, the busiest month for migration in the hemisphere. Republicans have posted images and videos of border cities packed with migrants. Some GOP presidential candidates have made plans to visit the border to spotlight the troubles. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is prepping to send more migrant flights from Texas to Democrat-led areas around the country. House Republicans on Thursday passed a sweeping immigration bill, a symbolic victory the party will likely point to in their attack against the president. Yeah, I mean, let's see. Sweeping immigration bill. Let's take a look. When the fuck was this? A couple days ago. House Republicans passed a sweeping border bill Thursday after months of intra-party sniping, a symbolic victory achieved just hours before a Trump-era migration expulsion policy expires. The bill is stacked with long-sought GOP priorities, including restarting construction on the border wall, useless, and placing new limits on asylum seekers. I would like to see an argument for why there needs to be more restrictions. Republicans still lost two of their own members, Thomas Massie and John Duarte, despite days of around-the-clock negotiations that resulted in multiple last-minute changes. The legislation is dead on arrival in a Democratic-controlled Democratic-controlled Senate. Instead, several senators are focused on trying to find a narrow bipartisan solution focused on the end of Title 42, a law that permits the U.S. to deny asylum and migration claims for public health reasons. But Republicans view the ability to pass their larger legislation as a dual political win, a political cudgel they can use to whack Democrats in a showcase of hard-fought unity on a divisive issue. The party's immigration priorities had sparked weeks of high-profile infighting earlier this year when lawmakers had to punt more conservative asylum legislation that caused heartburn among some centrists, a storyline that has replayed several times since January as House GOP leaders maneuver around their 4-vote margin. Jeez, 4 votes, that's then. We all wanted to achieve the same thing, but he added Title 42 expiring midnight Thursday today. Goodness. Today made sense as the right debate to do it because more people are focusing on the problem than I've seen in a long time. Here you have Republicans coming together saying there is a way to fix it. No Democrats voted for the bill, which they labeled the Child Deportation Act. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries argued Republicans wanted to, quote, weaponize and politicize the border as opposed to doing something meaningful about it. Thursday's vote is to end the result of months of negotiations that formally restarted in early March, and they still face last-minute pushback, final days, agriculture. Okay. Let's see. A symbolic victory. Yep, we know that. Still, Democrats and Biden allies who spoke to Politico, including Garcia, pulled back on the notion that immigration will be a top issue with 2024 voters, noting that inflation and abortion led voters in 2022. In past election years, immigration also fell below the economy and healthcare, even as Republicans, including Trump, sought to elevate fears around it. Actually, I'm kind of curious. Do we have... What is this? When was this done? Disapprove. Okay, this is more Biden. I don't give a fuck. Okay. That's fine. Let's see. In the past election years, oh, right, elevate, yeah. In past election years, immigration, the economy and healthcare, even as Republicans, including Trump, sought to elevate fears around it. Representative Veronica Escobar, a co-chair of Biden's re-election campaign, and Republicans refused to, quote, acknowledge their own role in what's unfolding at the border. In fact, many of the people complaining the loudest about what's happening at the border have been in Congress the longest and have done nothing on this issue, Escobar said in an interview. An administration official familiar with the White House's messaging, strategy said officials plan to go on offense in the coming months on immigration. We are not going to shy away from the fight. And the official, who was granted anonymity to speak freely, we're going to make it quite clear who is responsible for what. Sure. Biden campaign officials said the president will continue to speak candidly about the border challenge, just as he did on Tuesday night when he noted things would be chaotic for a while, but he also will forge ahead with policy solutions. The officials, okay. Let's see. Biden administration this week repeatedly highlighted its cross-agency, multi-pronged approach in managing the border. Once Title 42 was lifted late Thursday, the Biden administration returned to expediting removal processes under Title 8, the decades-old existing immigration law. It would ban these migrants from the country for 5 years. The administration is also relying on a rule that bars some migrants from applying for asylum if they fail to first apply for safe harbor while crossing through another country on the way to the U.S. The president also sent 1,500 active duty troops to help manage the border. The administration also working to establish regional centers in Guatemala and Colombia is processing migrants for asylum and other legal pathways before they reach the southern U.S. border. Though the timeline remains unclear, the White House is also continuing its humanitarian parole program for Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans while expanding the family reunification parole programs to include Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and Colombia. Well, that's nice. Yep, and the last neighbor is Belarus, and they tried because the migration problem on our border, courtesy of Russia. Our president was very inspired by Trump and build the wall and to be... Yeah, wasn't there like a really bad far-right movement cropping up in Poland? Also, I think I'll agree no matter who. Over Biden sometimes living on another planet. Yeah, I mean, they all are. They're all fucking corrupt. They all live on a completely other planet. You know, Biden doesn't have to worry about this bullshit. So naturally, he's not that personally invested in it. Now, given all that the House Republicans have had to say about our plan, you would think that they'd have some grand alternative. But think again. White House press sec, Even as the White House puts up a public fight behind closed doors, top aides are bracing for the arrival of thousands of migrants in the weeks ahead, with great concern about how the public will perceive Biden's management of the growing humanitarian crisis. You know, these kinds of stark videos on healthcare certainly don't have them on tax policy. And so if we see this surge of people coming to and crossing the border, that's going to be a problem for the administration. We know how Republicans are going to message it. You could have some moderate or certainly border Democrats speak along those lines as well. No, only super right movement is the Confederacy, but they've been around for a long time. Oh, okay. Maybe I'm thinking of another Eastern European country. I know there's been a surge of kind of strong right-wing populist movements cropping up in Eastern Europe, but I don't know if that included Poland. Tony Gonzalez drove his truck last week through El Paso, where he saw hundreds of migrants camped out around a local church. He said some were sick with tuberculosis and other illnesses, caught while completing a harrowing journey to the U.S. Basically, they've left this horrible place and they're not yet through this horrible journey. You look in somebody's eyes, you can't unsee that. You can't unsmell that. That's the part of it that doesn't really make it. For the local people that live there. Life has changed. Gonzalez said he hosted GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley at the border earlier this year, and he expects another GOP 2024 contender to make the trip to near future. Jesus. Democrats have been so fearful of touching immigration because they feel that they're going to lose independents and moderates. Miscalculation on their part. Yeah, no shit. Fucking idiots. That's what families in gun Tony vigilantes converge on Arizona after Title 42 ends. As President Joe Biden swaps one asylum crackdown for another, the border's lethality endures. The travelers stood atop the steep rolling hill. A group of small. There we go. Let's see. Rolling hill. They were just a few steps north of the border wall. Having passed through a gap in the towering steel barrier, they They gathered beneath Cochise Ridge, a remote feature of the Buenos Aires National Wildlife Refuge in southern Arizona, where last summer a white nationalist border vigilante chased an unarmed man into Mexico at gunpoint. The group was small, a man, 2 women, and 2 children, a boy and a girl. Their bright shirts made them easy to spot against the green and gold of the desert. The boy waved his arms above his head as I drove near, like a shipwrecked survivor on a deserted island. I rolled down my window. He looked to be about 8 years old, maybe 9, just tall enough to peek over my door and said hello in English. Man beside him looked exhausted, desperate. Across the country, the headline was chaos. The details didn't matter as much as the perception. Title 42 created a massive backlog of asylum seekers south of the border, and now it was going away. The president's critics did the smugglers' advertising for them, repeating ad nauseum the lie that the border was now open and Biden wanted the migrants to become Americans. Fuck. I thought that was okay. In a press conference earlier in the week, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, outlined the new enforcement framework. Our overall approach is to build lawful pathways for people to come to the United States and to impose tougher consequences. Okay. Simply showing up at the nation's doorstep was no longer enough. Asylum seekers could download an app and to join an electronic line now. Those who failed to seek asylum in another country first would not get in. Deportations would be fast-tracked, and new tweaks to the asylum interviews were aimed at making them harder to pass. To be fair, because a lot of people are only now seeing the whole cancel culture thing and Twitter and all this stuff in the U.S., and a lot of people don't like it. I mean, the U.S. is treated as much of an empire that just wants to use us for as long as we have a use as Russia, except Russia is closer, so yeah. Treated as oh yeah, to be fair, because a lot of people. Okay, that's what you mean by cancel culture and Twitter. Okay, yeah. How it would all play out remain to be seen. I think DHS is just absolutely terrified and clueless. A senior asylum officer speaking on the condition of anonymity because he is not authorized to speak to the press, told me while Mayorkas spoke on Thursday. The administration had reason to be concerned. The estimated arrival numbers were historic, and the Republicans clearly smelled blood. By the time the first day was through, the headlines imagining chaos were replaced by reports of calm across the border. While that may have been true in some parts on a far-flung strip of border road east of the tiny community of Sasabe, Arizona, the first 24 hours in post-Title 42 America offered a grim suggestion of the days to come. Heeding the call of the state's right-wing political leaders, armed vigilantes stalked and harassed humanitarian aid providers during the day, and by nightfall rounded up migrant children in the dark. The events followed weeks of rising tensions that included the arrest of a longtime aid volunteer by federal authorities. Caught in the middle, as ever, were desperate families facing deadly desert. Jesus. An hour and a half southeast of Tucson, the beauty of the Buenos Aires refuge belies its capacity for lethality. And yet, people from around the world, kids included, cross the landscape in sneakers without sufficient water or any real sense of where they are all the time. Over the past 2.5 decades, ever since the government began enlisting the Sonoran Desert in its war on unauthorized migration, the office of the Pima County Examiner in Tucson has recorded more than 4,000 migrant deaths along the state's southern border. Nationwide, experts put the minimum death toll at around 10,000, though all agree the true count is undoubtedly higher. Last year was the deadliest on record. The refuge has seen its share of migrant deaths. The most recent known case, an unidentified man whose skeletal remains were recovered on the road running parallel to the border wall just west of Cochise Ridge last October. The medical examiner estimated he had been dead for at least 6 months, maybe longer. The cause was unknown. since it's getting late, I have to wake up at 6 tomorrow. So yeah, see you later, Giannis. Appreciate the illumination on Polish politics and relations. Let's see what we got. At work, random channel surfing, having lunch, drinking beer, and saving the world. Do your thing, Thor. I believe in you. I root for you. The man's bones were found. I pray for your lunch to be long and delicious. The man's bones were found not far from the spot where the boys stood, outside my truck on Friday morning. As usual, I had come to the report. Okay, let's see. Border Patrol agent came rumbling down the road, was gruff. I told him the situation. He asked if I knew that I was trespassing. Well, it was on a public road on public land. I knew that the Border Patrol had recently adopted some novel interpretation of the law when it comes to the U.S. citizens passing through the area. I guided the conversation elsewhere. The Ecuadorians reported being in the elements for 3 days, I explained. They all say that the agent replied before driving off to collect the migrants waiting down the road. Jesus. They all say that because it's almost always true. The day earlier, I had spoken to Dora. Yeah, where does he think they're coming from? The Mexico side, there is still 2 hours from the road to get to the border wall. Jesus. Boggles the mind how they say, oh, Dorita, the border is going to be open, so people are going to come. Where have you heard that? If that's their mentality, if that's what they hear, I am sure that's what the smugglers are telling our people. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Say, oh yeah, let's do this one. This manager of the refugees started a chain of events that led to the collapse of one of the biggest political and military powers mankind has ever known. I don't know if that's gonna be the it's certainly in a chain of events, yeah. Our government just doesn't want to fucking solve problems. That's really my thing. We have been kicking this can down the fucking road for basically my entire life. We've decided, I'm 30 now, and my entire life we've just like dithered around the edges of immigration. We haven't come up with a new system for actually figuring out how to like deal with the border crises that we have, and like all of the migrants that come up from Central and South America. And it's just like we need a solution, but each party just wants to run on solving the problem and never actually do it, because they know that making a decision, passing some piece of legislation, means that they have to be held to account to that legislation. So if it works, maybe they get credit, but if it doesn't, then they have to eat all of those consequences. And because of that cowardice, they've just decided, we're just not going to ever, figure out any kind of solution. Meanwhile, regular Americans, regular people have to deal with the consequences of like all of the, I don't even want to say out of control, like immigration, because I don't really think we have out of control immigration so much as we have out of control like immigration processes. We don't have a solid way to like integrate these people into our communities, into our societies, and it just creates tension between groups. In 20 years ago, Goths had invaded Roman territory looking for food, shelter, and a better life. What do you mean when you say Goths? When I think Goths, I'm thinking the kids from South Park. Let's see. I'm assuming that's fuck no. And once you've been caught, should they give you a meal money and let you ride the rides? Well, no, but we're talking about like private property at that point. There's also the problem also is we have a really vague and like what's the word I'm looking for? Like unsecure system of asylum seeking. Like if you walk from like Ecuador up through Mexico and to the border, you're going to get to the border and you're going to go, okay, what door do I knock on so I can like begin the asylum process? and they will simply tell you not right now, or you know, oh, right now COVID or whatever, or well, right now Title 42 is what's the word, is in effect, so you can't, you know, you can knock on the door all you want, we don't have to answer, we can just kind of leave you out there. And what happens is while people are waiting at the border to enter into the legal process of seeking asylum, of immigrating here to America in a like in a way that's not like, oh hey, I want to immigrate to this country. It's like, no, I'm desperately fleeing my country. While they're waiting outside, there's predatory organizations, there's cartels, there's gangs, there's all of those people waiting, saying, hey, look, you've got to find shelter, you've got to find food, we can offer you a way to get in, you just have to do us a bit of a favor. And you know, when your family is sitting outside of, you know, basically in between two countries with no shelter, no way to feed yourself, no way to house yourself, desperate, you're going to take whatever option keeps you alive a little bit longer. We need to have a better immigration system, I think, to counter the illegal better option that a lot of smugglers operate, basically, because at the end of the day, they're seizing on our inability to process these people and expediting that through their own illegal channels, basically. And if we shored that up, if we had a better immigration system, we probably wouldn't see as many problems with smugglers as we do now. They're always, like, smugglers are always going to be a problem, and it's always going to exist, but the prevalence we can certainly challenge with better immigration laws and policies. Were Germanic people who played a major role in the fall of the Western Roman Empire emerged of medieval. Oh, okay. I wonder why we call kids who wear, people who like wear heavy makeup and shit, goths. Then I'm kind of curious about that. What the relationship is? If there's like something, if there's like a reason why that's what I associate that term with. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's see. Text plans to continue to do what the feds refuse to do. Okay, cool. All right. I guess Greg Abbott showed up on Fox News. Not shocking. Let's take a look at his take on all this. Governor of Texas.
Biden told us his phone app for illegals was going to tighten things up. Remember that? Migrants could just make a reservation to break into the country, like open table for illegals.
Oh,
do you have? The southern border is no more. It doesn't exist. Biden told us his phone app for illegals was going to tighten things up. Remember that? Migrants could just make a reservation to break into the country.
So these are all just okay. So this is characterized. This is mischaracterization and lying. Okay, cool. It's Jesse Watters, so it's kind of what you expect.
Do you have room for a party of 34 at 8 o'clock? Why, yes.
Wait,
do you need a high chair? Well, yes, we do. We need 6.
Maybe.
Here's the problem. The app's busted. It's worse than the Obamacare website because Joe isn't even trying to fix this. He has a new strategy. He's giving up on the app. You don't need a reservation to break into the country anymore. Now, it's first come, first serve.
Wait, no, but that's not true. The app is to expedite people who have been sitting in the immigration process. Like, that's what the app is for. A lot of people are sitting at the border waiting to get like processed in this app. It's not quite a lottery, but like there's a shit ton of backlog because of Title 42's implementation since the COVID-19 pandemic.
Illegals show up to the border, Biden lets them in, and then they disappear. Biden has ordered the Border Patrol not to track them. Biden has ordered the Border Patrol to not give them dates to show up at a hearing.
Is this really the quality of news broadcasting on Fox News now? Like, don't get me wrong, Tucker Carlson's always been bad, but this is, like, there's editorializing, and then there's this.
They're off the grid.
Like, whew.
And the ones that do have hearings, you ready? There's a 10-year wait time. The next opening for an immigration hearing is June 2033.
There is a huge backlog.
Pencil it into your calendar, Jose. Try not to schedule anything on June 1st, 2033.
Jose.
Now, Joe knows none of these migrants are showing up in court, and he knows they're not really fleeing violence because they wouldn't be fleeing to New York and Chicago.
But they're not. They're in Texas and Arizona and probably New Mexico. Also, they're not fleeing violence. South America, Central America isn't violent. I never understand this. If they're not fleeing from violence, then why do Republicans like Jesse Waters? Why do Fox News pundits say that immigrants from our southern border bring in crime? I don't they say that they bring crime in, but then in the same breath they're saying, "Oh, they don't come from dangerous places." Which one is it? Are these people fleeing dangerous regions, or are they not? It's one or the other.
In a generation, Texas is going to be a Democrat state, and the Republican candidate for president is only going to be able to look at the White House from.
Well, why would that be? What evidence do you have to that? Unless you're arguing that all migrants from south of our border are Democrats. But if you've ever met a Latino, they're not exactly the most progressive folks, probably about as progressive as any other population. There is a massive population of conservative Catholic Latinos. I don't know why. Like, this is where I spoke a little bit earlier about the Republican Party's disinterest in migrants based on their race, since they're consistently, according to them, concerned about the life of children and the life of women, but yet aren't interested in the lives of migrant women or migrant children. The same kind of goes for this sort of thing. Why is it that, they have this assumption that people who cross the border from Mexico or south of thereof are immediately going to be Democrats? It's not because they actually think that they are liberal in their ideological bend. It's just because they need to motivate their voters, GOP voters, to vote against the acceptance of these people into the country. They frame it as being an ideological opposition, but nowhere have I ever seen any evidence to say that they couldn't tap into the Catholic, very religious, conservative Latino population. They just don't want to, because the party is, quite frankly, based on white racial politics. They're just not interested in it. If they actually were interested in it, they would want these people getting into the country and trying to garner their votes when they're eligible to vote. Keep in mind, you come here as a migrant. You're not a citizen. You don't immediately get to vote. There is a process for citizenship that you don't just immediately get to vote also. So I don't know what he means in a decade. Decade isn't even, it takes so fucking long to apply for citizenship and actually get it in this country. Our citizenship process also needs a lot of updating.
From the outside, every migrant can be just like the Bidens now. No one pays their taxes. But Biden swears he's on it, and he's working around the clock, cutting deals with Mexico.
If they're not in the legal system, if they're not allowed into the legal system, then yeah, they can't pay income taxes. They can't pay Social Security taxes. They can't pay any of the normal employment taxes, and along with property taxes that we have on our citizens. Like, if you want them to pay taxes, you need to legalize them and enter them formally into the system. Even if that just means green cards and work visas, that's still legal existence into the country. But they also pay, like, all migrants, also everybody pays sales tax. So in that case, they are paying taxes that they will not benefit from.
And is Mexico doing enough, sir? Are they taking enough enforcement?
Yes, I spent an hour with the president of Mexico yesterday. He's been very cooperative. We're in agreement.
Oh, what a deal. We take in all the illegals, and Mexico watches. Are we not going to let him
finish his sentence?
Biden's phone calls never work out. He calls Xi Jinping, and they send a spy balloon. He calls the Saudis, they send him to voicemail. and he calls Mexico, and they send 1 million more migrants.
What is he even talking about? What voicemail? What spy balloon? I'm so confused.
Anytime this White House says there's a deal being
These
cut,
are just like
things get
random
worse.
stories from the last.
Remember when Kamala
couple
went to Central
months.
America to track down root causes? She cut some deals, sent them $4 billion, and promised to open a Target in Guatemala. Did that stop anything? No.
Is that?
But Texas
is that what happened? If I type in I think he said a Target, not a Walmart. Big money support, but border crossings remain high. Yeah, no shit. Vice President Kamala Harris' efforts to tackle root causes of migration from Central America yielded more than $4.2 billion in private sector. Wait. Go back.
sent them $4 billion and promised to open a Target in causes. She cut some deals, sent them $4 billion and promised to open a Target in Guatemala.
Sent them $4 billion. Sir, this is private sector commitments. This isn't sending $4 billion. This is the private sector wanting to invest $4 billion. And this probably isn't even like one, what's it called? This most likely this isn't even one business or industry. This is broadly the private sector being interested in investing into cheap land in South America and Central America. Influx, Republicans don't care. Is the word Target in here at all? Is the word Target in here at all? Let's see. Among those companies, thank God, are Chegg, an online learning platform that is committed to certifying 100,000 young adult students in Honduras by 2023. Nestle, which has supported thousands of car producers, and Target. Oh, so Nestle, you mean the company who would like to impose child labor so that they can rob the region of their cocoa beans for their chocolate. Gotcha. Yeah, this is yeah. This is private what's it called? This is private investment into the global south. That's all this is. Nothing, literally nothing new.
Did that stop anything? No. But Texas is doing something about it. Governor Abbott told the National Guard to put up some barbed wire to film.
Wait, when did I even wait a minute. What was the date on that article? Wow, this guy is fucking stupid. When was this? This was months ago. This was February 6th. What is that? 3 months ago? What does he think? 3 months after securing some private sector buy-in, that immigration is just gonna stop? Like, yeah, the root causes are a lack of secure jobs and like what's it called? And cartel influence in government. Like, yeah, no shit.
Well, the gaps. Look at that. It's actually been effective. He's trying to protect the state and the country. But instead of saying thank you, the Biden team's trying to sue him. Listen.
We've just seen some images from Texas showing Texas National Guard and DPS physically blocking migrants from climbing up the riverbanks and accessing U.S. soil. Does the department believe that that's a legal enforcement posture by the state of Texas?
Nick, I'm going to leave it to our Department of Justice to speak to the lawfulness or lack thereof of those actions.
Yeah, it's illegal to.
I love how they never let anybody finish their sentences. Like, I really do love that about Fox News. They cut everybody off in the middle of what they're saying, so they can be like, all right, now on to this other thing.
Order. Greg Abbott's the governor of Texas, who joins
better.
us now. So that wire looked effective. Do you have plans, Governor, to do more of that?
I do, Jess. Also, keep in mind, effective does not mean that it's like humanitarian or legal. Like, anything can, like, shooting everybody at this border crossing would be effective, but it would be illegal and wildly against international law. That's what they're arguing, is that we have international asylum seeking and immigration laws, and you are currently breaking them. We have these laws in place to secure and make sure that countries all over the world, not just the United States, don't just kill people trying to immigrate to their country and seek asylum because they just don't want them there. Like, we need to have a legal system to go through all of this stuff.
Jesse, we have deployed some elite National Guard teams to respond to situations just like that. First, to put up barriers, whether it be the razor
really
wire that you saw there or other barriers, and then have National Guard and Texas Department of Public Safety either in front of it or behind it. Our goal is to repel people from coming into the country. We see locations like what was shown in that video, and whenever we see them, we block it. Let me harken back to December. There was a long...
I want you to just think really quickly. Just imagine these were Republican Party voters. Just try fleeing, I don't know, a fucking red state into a blue state or something. Or fleeing like a blue state into a red state. And, and they were like, no, you're not allowed to leave. We're going to put barbed wire up to keep you where you are. Like, they would be...
A line of migrants outside of El Paso, trying to get into El Paso. When I saw that line, we deployed a group like this to set up a massive razor wire wall.
Also,
it's
keep
now
in mind,
18
this
miles
is just
long.
pushing people into
and
the arms of
overnight,
smugglers.
the migrants stopped flowing at that location into El Paso. We've seen this work. We're going to repeat it as often as possible up and down the border.
Good. You heard the...
Yeah, and that's fucking stupid and also ineffective. If you've ever played whack-a-mole, that's basically what they're going to do. They're going to drive that little group of elite janitors with balaclavas all over the fucking border and constantly stamp down every time a group of migrants show up somewhere. It's fucking stupid.
The president say he was on the phone with the president of Mexico for an hour. Have you ever spent an hour on the phone with our president?
So, Jesse, you may remember actually also in El Paso, I spent about 10 minutes on the tarmac of the airport in El Paso when I handed the president a letter that had in it 5 different things he could do under current American law to stop illegal immigration overnight. He shook his head, but never responded to me. I've sent the president 8 letters. He's never responded to it. So Texas, to the full extent we can, we're taking matters into our own hands.
So he ignores the American politician who's trying to work with him, and then he spends an hour on the phone with Mexico who's doing flat out nothing.
Well, Jesse, you dipshit. The American politician that he's ignoring is in the opposition party and is running a state in an oppositional fashion to the current president's administrative goals and values. So, yeah, no shit. Joe Biden, or any president for that matter, has no real what's the word I'm looking for? There is nothing that says that he needs to be interested in Greg Abbott's fucking opinions on the border. Greg Abbott is a dipshit and a Republican governor of Texas. So if I was president, I would have probably said, "Oh, thanks," ripped it up, and probably threw it back at him and been like, "Go fuck yourself. I don't have time for this nonsense." Because understand, what is his we're going to take it into our own hands. We're just going to set up barbed wire across the entire border of the United States. Like, yeah, that's a real fucking solution. And we'll send balaclava janitors all over the place to stamp down like little packs of people. Yeah, makes sense.
I have to make a personal request. I know this shouldn't be about me, but it always is. You got to send these illegals to somewhere else besides New York because the traffic here is crazy. I was stuck behind a school bus full of illegal immigrants and their families for about 20 minutes. I almost missed the 5 today, Governor. Maybe we
deal with it. I don't know. Buy the company helicopter or something. I don't know. Also, is that really? I mean, I want you to think about this. These are people who think themselves good Christians and good followers of Christ, and they're over here complaining that we let in desperate people from around the world and it inconvenienced his commute to work. That's the grace of Christ that this guy thinks he belongs in the light of. Jesus.
Maybe some buses can go to Chicago or Philly.
Does he not?
So they're headed to Chicago more than any other place. They love Lori Lightfoot.
Okay, good. Because it's getting a little filled up.
You know what I
here.
think? I think we should send all immigrants to Jesse Waters' house. That's what we should do. We should he should be forced by law to accept any and all migrants into his private dwelling. That's what
here in Manhattan. And I'm hearing they might have to block off whole streets. And that's not going to fly. I'm going to be late. And we need to hear from me. The country needs to hear from me on time. You promise you're going to send no more buses here?
No, sir. There will be more coming. There will be more going to New York, Philadelphia.
Like, these people treat other human beings as if they are cattle, as if they are livestock, and then turn around and pretend to be, good Christians, good people, all the rest of the stuff. It really, it really just proves how much of demons these fucking people are. Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay, and let's get to Florida now, because so with the end of Title 42, in Florida, Ron DeSantis passed a let's see, what is it? A E-Verify requirement law in his state to kind of cut down on the illegal migrant employment, I suppose. So let's go take a look at that and see how that's been working out for them. Video showing empty shelves at a grocery store has gone viral just days after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a sweeping anti-immigration bill into law. SB 1718, passed by Florida lawmakers in response to the end of Title 42, includes a requirement that businesses with more than 25 employees use E-Verify, a federal system that determines if employees can legally work in the U.S. DeSantis signed it into law on Wednesday, and it takes effect on July 1st. Experts have warned that the law will have an impact on Florida's economy, including by raising the prices for consumers and worsen a labor shortage. However, its supporters say it will combat illegal immigration and raise wages for legal workers. It won't do either of those two things. Let's be really clear. The U.S. economy, okay, so when we talk about the U.S. economy, we've been talking about immigration just on its own. But when we talk about the U.S. economy, it is propped up by the work of migrants. Migrant labor is how our country functions, quite frankly. Unfortunately, we have been pretty blasé about companies taking in migrant labor, paying them garbage wages, and allowing them to get away with that for far too long. And it has made a lot of companies dependent on that kind of basically free labor, that incredibly cheap labor. And now the chickens have come home to roost. Now that, Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, has decided he wants to win some votes, he wants to win some support in the Republican Party, he's going to require E-Verify for all of these employers, now thinking, oh, this will mean that American workers are going to go work, picking the fruit, work stocking the grocery stores. And guess what? It ain't going to happen. Because none of these jobs and none of these employers want to pay American wages. So now, this is the consequence of that. Prices are going to go up. Shortages are going to happen. And you all can thank Ron DeSantis for this one. Over the weekend, a video purporting to show empty shelves in a grocery store in Florida as a result of the law went viral on TikTok. The video has not been verified by Newsweek and is not known that the shortages of truckers is to blame for the empty shelves. The clip posted by a user, Representative, okay. We'll look at the clip in a bit. Let's see. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat from New York, last week responded to the reported boycott planned by truckers, saying Florida's leaders were responsible for the backlash. Anti-immigrant policies reap what they sow. DeSantis's Florida is about to find that out. The U.S. has such deep needs right now, particularly in labor, yet policymakers of all stripes take our immigration communities for granted. No mas. Time to stop biting the hands that feed. Not wrong. Meanwhile, other videos posted on Twitter and TikTok appear to show empty construction sites and farms in the state. These have not been verified, obviously. I don't really know if there's like a way to verify. Yeah, good luck with this. Work sites across Florida are struggling after lawmakers passed a draconian anti-immigrant bill backed by DeSantis. Our state is being ruined by racist politicians who want to demonize people who simply want to work and be left alone while providing for their families. Jesus. And also, let's be clear. Let me just be clear about this now. I'm not a fan of immigrant, non-legal and shit wage work. What we should be doing is legalizing these workers and then requiring these work sites to pay them proper wages. That's what should be happening. But unfortunately, there's this, we'll decouple these workforces and make them uneligible to work for some of these places, and American workers will just go and do the work, which won't happen. They are still there. At the end of the day, the relationship that these businesses have to these low wages will always trump, wanting to pay more for American workers. You have to force them to pay American workers by forcing their hand. Worksites got forced. Yeah. Our state is being ruined by racist. Right. Okay, I don't know why those are quoted different places. DeSantis, who is expected to announce his presidential candidacy in the coming weeks, yeah, right, has made hardening Florida's immigration law a top priority while criticizing federal border policy. In Florida, we will not stand idly by while the federal government abandons its lawful duties to protect our country. Talk to Congress. Talk to Congress about that. The legislation I signed today gives Florida the most ambitious anti-illegal immigration laws in the country, fighting back against reckless federal government policies and ensuring that Florida taxpayers are not footing the bill for illegal immigration. They're not footing the bill. They're benefiting from illegal immigration. Every Floridian, everybody in this country benefits from illegal immigration. Understand that. We all benefit from the illegal, underpaid labor of these communities. Newsweek has contacted the governor's office for further comment via email. The migrant workers on the farm at home said Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Oh, right. Okay, that's for the picture. Yeah. Hey. Good job, numbnuts. There's also a truckers strike right now on behalf of migrant workers. Because these are the people. Also, the reason why truckers are protesting right now is also because what's it called? These migrant communities are who a lot of truckers are going to be working with. Like, these are their coworkers. So I respect that they're
supermarkets are empty and
in solidarity.
Nothing. Look, nothing. There's nothing here.
Jeez. Actually, to be honest, I'm looking at this. It's a bit weird that there is literally nothing instead of just scraps from the day before. I don't know. This seems... I mean, this is pretty unverified, but I will say this is a bit suspect that it's empty. It looks like it's just a new store. It also looks very clean. I don't know.
Lucky if you find something.
Okay. I'll go out on a limb here and be the bad guy. I don't know if that video is actually indicative of the situation in Florida directly, but I have no doubt that there is going to be or is a shortage currently of workers to stock that stuff. I have no doubt about that. Do I think it's to that extent? I am a bit skeptical on that specifically. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, it's a good thing I... Wait, what the fuck? What the fuck? Wait, you're kidding. What the...
Here with my training wheels on, I never get butterflies.
Bro, what? Steve's taking a break? Steve's taking a break from hearing about his wife that he brought Alex Jones on,
which is a very good thing. It's been
oh my god
for you guys. And then also just
no, I'm not watching this, but wow, Steve taking a break, bud. What is this lazy ass? Okay, mass shooting, of course, 3 dead because of a mass shooting. Naturally. This is America. Jesus. Okay. Well. What is this? No one is... God, they're still coping about Bud Light. Okay. Well, I think that's actually it for the day. You know, we've kind of gone over a lot. You know, we read quite a bit. You know, hopefully, I'm hoping in the future, you know, I want to do like a whole stream that's just on the Red Summer. I'm still compiling a bunch of stuff to kind of watch and read. Or at least a number of things to watch and read. I don't want to say a bunch. It's not like it's, you know, it's some college course or anything. But either way, yeah, you know, when we talk about immigration, I hope that it's understood that, we need to push our government to actually find some kind of real solution and not this constant like back and forth of this you know, let's dither around the edges, let's kind of do nothing, let's, you know, it's just we need a real solution. And part of that is updating our asylum process, hiring a lot more immigration judges, actually being able to process these people who are coming here. Because keep in mind, every time we poorly process somebody who is trying to seek asylum or come to this country, fleeing danger, or just immigrate here, every time we put them through an arduous and dangerous and damaging process, we push them into the arms of traffickers, of illegal, you know, into illegal structures and illegal organizations. And that is not something that we should be basically facilitating for ourselves. You know, unfortunately, you know, I'm not sure we're going to get a solution on this, but we need something a lot more concrete than what we have. Other than that, I'm actually just kind of looking through Twitter to see what's going on. Something called the Durham Report is insanely damning to the FBI, the Clinton campaign, and the Obama administration, everyone involved. What is this? Oh my God, this is like a government document. This is long. This is 316 pages. Okay, maybe, we should go over this tomorrow. Yeah, we'll go over this tomorrow. Hello, cat. Goodbye, cat. Yeah, we'll go over this tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow we'll be going at the normal time, 7 o'clock. Otherwise, yeah. This seems kind of interesting, whatever the Durham Report is. So we'll go over that. I'm sure there will be things that happen between now and then. So yeah. You guys all have a lovely day. Thanks for hanging out. I guess I should do the, like, if you liked what you saw, if you just lurked in chat, if you had fun, if you learned something, if you just got some catharsis, I don't know, if you did anything other than even if you did dislike it, if you want to come on and challenge me, by all means, you should hit that follow button, you should hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and yeah, help support the channel. Otherwise, I'm gonna sign off now. You guys are gonna have a good day, and yeah, see everyone later. Bye bye.